Have you ever just stopped and wondered, is all this striving, all the work, all the chasing after happiness, is it all kind of pointless? Well, believe it or not, thousands of years ago, a king, who many think was Solomon, asked that exact same thing. Today, we're diving into his incredibly honest and sometimes brutal journal, the Book of Ecclesiastes. It's basically an ancient search for the meaning of life.
Right out of the gate, the book hits you with one of the most jarring lines ever written. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. I mean, wow. Talk about a bleak opening. What on earth could lead someone to that conclusion? Well, that's exactly the question the author, who calls himself the preacher, is about to investigate. So let's start with this big problem that sets up the whole book. The preacher puts forward this really bold and frankly depressing idea that everything we do under the sun, here on Earth, all our human efforts are ultimately meaningless. Now, to really get this, we have to understand the original Hebrew word he uses for vanity. It's hevel. And this doesn't mean being conceited or arrogant. No, hevel is more like smoke or your breath on a cold day. You can see it, it's there for a second, but try and grab it. You can't. It's fleeting, it's temporary, it's an illusion you can't hold on to. And he applies this idea of hevel to literally everything. He looks at the world, at all our ambitions, our work, our hustle, and he just concludes that none of it gives any real, lasting satisfaction. Yeah, it's a pretty intense place to start. But here's the cool part. He doesn't just drop that bombshell and walk away. Nope, he decides to put his own theory to the test. He goes on this personal quest, running a series of life experiments to see if he can find anything, just one thing that isn't hevel. First up, wisdom. And remember, this guy is a king. He has access to all the knowledge you could possibly imagine. So he dives in headfirst, studying, trying to figure out how everything works. He must have thought, surely knowledge is the answer, right? Well, the experiment was a bust. He found that the more you know, the more sorrow you have. The more you understand about the world, the more you see how broken it is, how much injustice there is. And ultimately, no amount of wisdom can stop death. So for him, this path was a complete dead end. Okay, so wisdom is out. What's next on the list? Pleasure, of course. So the author just goes all in. We're talking immense wealth, building incredible gardens and palaces, the best food, the best wine, all the entertainment, literally everything you could ever want. And the verdict? You guessed it, also meaningless. Sure, it was fun for a while, but he realized it was all just a distraction. The thrill fades, right? The new thing gets old, and you're left just as empty as before, always chasing the next high. Just another form of hevel. All right, final test. If wisdom and pleasure don't work, what about building a legacy? What about power and great achievements? He turns to completing massive projects, gaining more and more influence, and building a name for himself that would last forever. And yet again, the verdict is vanity. Why? Well, because he has this profound realization that death is the great equalizer. It comes for everyone. The wise person and the fool, the rich and the poor. A powerful king dies just like a common laborer. So in the end, all that status, all that achievement, it's all temporary. Now, after that exhaustive and kind of depressing journey, you'd think the book would just end there. But it doesn't. In fact, this is where it takes a really surprising and honestly beautiful turn. After concluding all the grand pursuits are pointless, his focus completely shifts to the small, everyday things. And this is a huge change in perspective. Forget about chasing ultimate wisdom, power, or wealth. He starts praising the simple gifts in life. Things like good food and drink, the satisfaction you get from a hard day's work, and the joy of being with people you care about. He literally says there's nothing better than to just eat and drink and enjoy your work. Now, he's not saying a good meal is the ultimate meaning of life, but he is saying that the ability to enjoy these simple things, that's a good gift. A gift, he says, that comes directly from the hand of God. So, how do we make sense of this? How can life be both meaningless vapor, but also full of good gifts that we're supposed to enjoy? It feels like a paradox, right? Well, this brings us to the book's final, powerful conclusion that ties it all together. In the final verses, after all that searching, he asks the big one, the ultimate question. After you strip away everything that turned out to be hevel, what's left? What's our fundamental purpose here? And the answer he lands on is shockingly simple. He says, The foundation for a meaningful life isn't found under the sun in what we can accomplish or own. Instead, it's found in a relationship of reverence or fear towards God and living in a way that aligns with His commandments. And that is the key that unlocks everything else. Suddenly, those simple gifts, the food, the work, the relationships, they aren't just random, fleeting pleasures anymore. They actually have meaning precisely because they come from God. The point of life, he concludes, isn't to build our own little kingdom, but to simply acknowledge God's rule and enjoy the life He's given us.
And so Ecclesiastes leaves us with this massive question that just echoes through time. It forces us to look past all the hevel in our own lives, all the smoke and vapor of our ambitions, and to ask ourselves, when all is said and done, what truly matters? It's a question that is just as real for us today as it was thousands of years ago.